next reader, I am excited to welcome Kathryn Nuernberger is the author of Rue, The End of Pink, and Rag and Bone, a recipient of fellowships from the NEA, H.J. Andrews Research Forest, American Antiquarian Society, and the Bakken Museum of Electricity and Life. She teaches creative writing at the University of Minnesota. Please welcome Kathryn.
Thank you all for being here. I'm really excited to be reading with Roger and Jenny. So I like to tell people this book, Rue, is about plants historically used for birth control and my pissed off feelings about patriarchal bullshit. But the more accurate description of it is how it's about how I spent my life pretending to be the kind of person I thought people would like and started to lose my mind inside that lie. I'm going to read you a poem that maybe sets the milieu, called A Difficult Woman. I left the metaphor of myself I like best in the rabbit warren and went to the office to seem like the kind of person another person might hire, because it is a true fact that some committee of persons hired me, and this because I pretended to be a professionalism for once for an afternoon. And that metaphor was convincing enough to calcify over the flesh of itself with a stiff-sleeved shirt and knee-length skirt and become the myself of myself now, who owes the office better than a professionalism 3, since the office is not the one who pretended their way into this. The office is not the one who didn't realize people really believe you are how you pretend to be. The office is not responsible for the fact or think curse words bring flavor to any conversation, and gossip is a form of social capital essential to the building of a relationship because it makes a person vulnerable and powerful with information at the same time and forges a feeling, if not the fact, of trust and authenticity. In pursuit of professionalism 4, I use a lot of smiley faces and exclamation points in my discourse to iron myself disarming. Professionalism 5 needs no emoticons, for it is already ironed. I'm sorry, not sorry, I left the metaphor of my uncomfortable work clothes in the rabbit warren and decided to wear jeans every day to every meeting, regardless of the pomp, because no one asked at the interview what I think about pomp. I think pomp is maladaptive. That is a professionalism 2 sort of opinion to hold, and anyway, I think pomp is fucking maladaptive. I don't know why it is professionalism 4 to keep that sort of opinion to ourselves. I don't know why it is professionalism 5 to love pomp. What if I fucking love pomp? Would they have to create a box for 6? Every little box is a warren, and I try to stay inside, but my haunches are itching springs, and I want to fuck over everything like it is May, and the oak leaves have just uncurled to the size of squirrel ears. They billow open more, I think, to try to hear the wind of all the discarded metaphors for what I am, and you are too. The whole green lawn around the cinder block of our days is buzz and bloom for somebody to, I want to say, kick up a tempest of themselves getting fired. But really, I just mean, tell me something I don't already know, and thus swear never to repeat. So in this place in rural Missouri I was living, where I was living on a farm, I had one dear friend. Her name was Sarah Nguyen. She's a visual artist, and she was painting portraits of plants historically used for birth control. And so I decided to do this in my way with poems, and so I started going out every day and meeting a plant in the field behind my house and going back and researching it. And like almost every single one of those plants had been used at some point in the past by midwives for birth control or abortion. And that made me feel sort of surrounded by a collective of radical feminists who I could really be friends with. And so a lot of the poems in this book are artifacts from those sort of lonely conversations. Penny Royale, a lot of them don't seem to have been particularly efficacious. Penny Royale works, but if you do it wrong, you'll kill the woman. So I don't know, let's just stick with the birth control we've got without some regulations. Penny Royale. Penny Royale, smallest of the mints with weak prostrate stems. Penny Royale, a purple button for your pocket. Penny Royale, called run by the ground. Penny Royale, called lurk in the ditch. Penny Royale, it creepeth much and groweth much. It comes into bloom without any setting. Penny Royale, Pliny couldn't help himself going on at length. Penny Royale, creeping on my field for years. Penny Royale, before I knew what an old witch you really are, I brought you home to be a bouquet for my mother. Penny Royale, drunk with wine for venomous bites, applied to nostrils with vinegar to revive those who faint and swoon. The inside of my body is very dark, I think, or maybe the skin lets a light in like when I close my eyes in the sun. Penny Royale, to relieve upset stomach. Penny Royale, to reduce flatulence. Penny Royale, active agent Cooligon, I'll meet you in the centrifuge. Penny Royale, to flavor hog pudding with pepper and honey. Strengthens the gums, helps the gout, cleanses the foul ulcers, drives out the fleas. Penny Royale for menstrual derangements. pennyroyale to abort the thing, pennyroyale to kill the bitch, pennyroyale to take away the marks of bruises and blows about the eyes. Pennyroyale asked and answered. By putting flies and bees in warm ashes of pennyroyale, they shall recover life as by the space of an hour and be revived. We're so many versions of ourselves. We try this, we try that. Sometimes we're efficacious. Sometimes we don't know what we're for. I'll read to you about Rue. Let's try again, he says. I could, but I wear this pressed flower around my neck, as all the girls once wore a charm, and it will not let me believe never any more promise. I could, but the archangel gave Adam yellow blossoms of rue that he might have clear sight, and Eve, merciful midwife that she was, snuck her own bouquet. I could, but it is rue in St. Hildegard's curious book of visions and apocalypses that is the remedy for melancholy. I could, but rue is bitter, hence regret, and rue is the antidote to plague, hence the fair maidens. I could, but the basilisk's breath, which causes plants to wilt and stones to crack, has no effect on rue. But the weasels who hunt the snakes first gorge themselves on rue, the herb of grace, and grave robbers in shackles traded the secret recipe to the vinegar of the 4 thieves for their freedom. Rosemary, sage, lavender, rue, wormwood, meadowsweet, cloves, campanula roots, 2 ounces of angelica, 3 pints of strong white vinegar, horehound, and large measures of camphor protects the wearer against pestilence and plague. I could, but could you tell me the name of even one such star that constellates the ocean of these endless brown fields? Our Savior rebuked the Pharisees, their superstition in paying tithes in rue. The priests used rue to see the witches, and the witches used rue to see the priests. Da Vinci and Michelangelo both took rue to preserve their vision and keep it sharp. I could, but blind men can't paint virgins. I could, but when I wanted to, you are nowhere to be found. I could, but I like you better when I hardly recognize you this way. I could, but for how rue loves the rocky, sandy soil, but for how it makes the yellow meadow of this fall-down stone wall. I could, but I don't even think I could. I could, but I don't think I will. So this book isn't just about talking to plants. It was about trying to learn how to talk to other people. I came upon Adrienne Rich's essays during this time, and she has this line that says, a lie is a failure to imagine the possibilities that exist between 2 people or a group of people. And so I began to try to stop being a lie of myself and believing in the possibilities. And that began with, well, not began with, but the most potent place it happened was in my marriage. So I'll read you this poem called Things I Did Today Besides. I looked at mulberry paper diagrams of a woman's brain made by the artist Lisa Nielsen, who says this rolling of the gilded spines of old books into something else was a practice designed by Renaissance nuns and monks making artistic uses of scraps, later perfected by 18th century ladies making artistic use of a lot of free time. I was impressed. Then I read some love poems by a famous writer who does an excellent job controlling himself. I was not impressed. I also read something by my friend who is not yet a famous writer, but who is also controlling herself, but just barely. She and I feel so many of the same things that we only communicate them via poem. Part of what we have in common is that we'd never talk about an affair out loud, much less have one, unless one of us actually has one. If it has to be one of us, I hope it is me. I have two. Thanks, everybody. I have too long been so excellent at controlling myself, but my chance to make a gilded wreck of everything is getting moth-eaten by the absence of a new letter from the only person who has ever made such a pulp scene possible. I knew when I didn't leave my husband right that minute, I would come to think I was crazy to have thought I wanted to, which was the worst part of not doing it. And now here I am, looking on the past with the serene composure of a woman learning to like her compromises. In Book 3, Chapter 9 of his travels, Marco Polo mistook a rhinoceros for a unicorn because he believed what he read in books. You might even think, oh, you can't fault him for that. And you might even think, what does it matter if you call a unicorn a rhinoceros or vice versa? They're just words. But if you think that, then you too are desperately in need of a very well-written letter that reminds you of the words for everything you don't know. Before all of this, in the matte light of morning, I rolled over and put my head on my husband's chest and told him I still want to revenge kiss a stranger. Even though I don't really want to, I want to, so I'm making myself want to. Telling him this, I said, was a gift. A gold-leafed box of dramatic and secret and honest. It's everything I want from a relationship, and I'm giving it to you. When he kissed my temple and said, I know, I knew it was possible to be moved by the love story of this sort of thing that leaves between us. But I'm no longer satisfied by such pages. I'm consumed with what a nun can do with a busted-up spine. It's called quilling, by the way, and it requires a great deal of intense concentration. So much, in fact, it wouldn't be at all surprising for a virgin to suddenly feel she saw the erotic face of God in the work of her slender, efficient fingers. I could envy her the finely etched mulberry branches lacing this box of pleasure she found in her otherwise gray convent of a life, but I do not. I've changed my mind about the whole thing. How stupid must you be not to know that pretty boxes are a dime a dozen? You can fill your whole house with them, if that's what you want. So the whole time writing this book, these poems, I was really sure I was getting divorced. Brian, my husband, who's always been my first reader and a really good editor for me, said he wanted to keep doing that work despite the fact that we were saying horrible things to each other all the time. So I would show him drafts of these poems, and he'd look at them and he'd be like, well, you're going to have to make the husband a lot worse of a villain to pull this off. I don't get it back. Or he'd be like, super painful, send it out. Yeah, and I guess I was surprised. I really thought people don't change, and he really changed, and I really changed too. So I guess this is the I like to say my muse only traffics in fury, so this is the closest I can get to a love poem. It's about birth control again. It's about this plant called silphium, which was apparently actually very effective birth control, like aside from pennyroyal, which might kill you. It's like the only one that seems like it really worked. And it was, of course, extincted during the Empire of Caligula. So, great work, team. Regarding silphium, the birth control of the Roman Empire for 600 years, extincted by careless land management in the year 280. When I was just about done being married, and he was a blossomed-out nerve of seeing himself through the ugly eyes of how I had come to see him and myself, for letting our lives get so Tupperware fur molded, for thinking I could lace and pinprick it back with just the right delicacy, when a good punch in the face was what a mess this bad required. I know, you're thinking a punch in the face is never the answer, but that's the lace talking. When I was just about done with the lace-throated baby violence, our daughter, who is 5, told me how he broke. She didn't say he broke. She said he got really worked up driving past all the protesters outside Planned Parenthood on Providence Avenue, from which the University Medical School had just withdrawn funding, and also the option for residents to do training there. How he took a hard left into the parking lot, and with our daughter by the hand, marched in with an urgency that made the young man working the desk say, "Sir," with some alarm. He took a breath to be more steady and said, "I'm so sorry about all of this, all of that out there, and I just thought I'd make a donation." As he pulled all the money from his wallet, some of it crumpled, a mixture of 5s and 1s, and pushed it across the counter, our daughter watching and looking around the room, studying the faces of timid and nervous young women, I imagine, in those plastic chairs I remember from when I once sat in this exact waiting room myself so many years ago, feeling embarrassed and ashamed because it seemed that's what I was supposed to feel. Though if I could have felt my way beyond supposed to back then to my actual self, I would have known I didn't feel sorry at all, only annoyed by the tedium of appointments, the practical necessity of that clean smell, the chilly, dustless air of a building with nothing soft except the aspect of the resident, who is the only doctor I've ever had who joked as she put her gloved hand in my body. "I guess this is the most awkward thing you'll do today, huh?" It was funny and made me feel like we've been friends a long time. My husband, who is still my husband after all, knew that story, and I guess he wanted our daughter to somehow know it too. "Sometimes you'll feel very alone," I tell her on a day when I find her pressing her face against the window, watching the children next door play in the grass, wiping tears from her face as fast as they fall. "Other times, you'll be so wonderfully surprised by the strange bridges people manage to build out to you when you never would have expected they could." Thank you.